we are preparing the 20th sanction package. I think that Putin went very nervous about the opportunity that maybe in December we are going to make a decision about Russian frozen assets, what we have close to 200 billion euros here, to make a decision to use them, to keep them frozen a very long time and give the guarantee and also the loan to Ukraine, at least 140, 150 billion euros. So I think that these steps from European side made Russia more concerned. As well, that President Trump has put the sanctions on these two Russian energy companies. So it's really obvious that Putin is nervous because he has not had any kind of strategic breakthrough on the battlefield, but also he's running out of energy in economy.
There'll be another day of talks today in Geneva aimed at getting to some sort of peace agreement. America's Secretary of State Marco Rubio said there'd been tremendous progress so far, and President Zelensky told reporters there were signals that President Trump's team was hearing us. In a moment, we'll speak to the Estonian foreign minister. But first, let's talk to Liz Cookman, who writes for The Times about the situation in Ukraine. Liz, morning to you.
Good morning.
What do we know about the origins of the plan? Before we get to where it's got to after yesterday, is it now accepted that the origins of this 28-point plan were Russian?
So not a lot is known about the plan itself. I mean, the various versions of it have been leaked and widely published online, but nobody's certain yet where that came from, whether the leak came from the Ukrainian side. A lot of people believe it came from the Russian side. It appears that the draft of the peace plan is very similar to what Russia put forward previously during the meeting between President Putin and President Trump in Alaska. Putin himself has said that it matches what they put forward. And it's widely thought that it was drafted by Kirill Dmitriev, who is the investment envoy for Russia, who has played a key role in these negotiations with Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's envoy.
We were speaking to Anthony Lloyd in Ukraine earlier today, and he said the thing that most sticks in the throat of the Ukrainians is this idea of giving up territory that Russia hasn't already occupied, so giving up more than Russia has currently attained on the battlefield. Is that the sort of thing that the European counter-proposal is seeking to push back on, do you think?
Yeah, so also, not that much has been said about the European counter-proposal. Reuters reported on some of the points, although Rubio has said that he hasn't seen a counter-proposal. Oh, one of the reported points is that there will be no statement in the peace deal that says that the areas like Donetsk and Luhansk will be automatically ceded to Russia, and that instead there will be a discussion about territory that would start at the current line of contact. So that suggests that they would be willing to negotiate areas that Russia is already occupying, but not necessarily the ones that they're not.
And what's the danger of Zelensky being attempted to be bounced on this? Because Trump set a deadline for Thursday, although he may have slightly stepped back from that. He talks about zero gratitude coming from Kiev. We all know he regards Russia and Ukraine as similar levels of antagonism in this conflict. Could this come to a head by Thursday, do you think, with America putting pressure on Ukraine?
Yeah, I think those comments were difficult to hear in Ukraine, especially after, obviously, the difficult meeting between Zelensky and Trump in the Oval Office a few months ago. And it's been a really difficult week for Ukraine in general. Last week, there was a huge corruption scandal, and then a lot of pressure has been put on Zelensky. It's not clear yet whether that Thursday deadline still stands. Trump was asked yesterday about it, and he said he was asked what happens if Zelensky doesn't meet that deadline, and he said he'll have to fight his little heart out, suggesting that perhaps he still expects things to continue either way. But Trump is known to take a hard line on these kind of negotiations and going really hard at the beginning to try and get stuff moving, and also to make people feel that that he's made concessions when he rolls back a little bit further down the line. So it all really remains to be seen, and they're continuing talks today, which we expect to hear a lot more about, probably at the end of the day or tomorrow. And both sides had said that there's been a lot of progress, although Russia is absent from these talks. So it remains to be seen what they feel about it.
Yeah, there seems to be an awful lot of moving pieces we can't quite see at the moment in all of this. Liz, great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us. That's Liz Cookman there, who writes for The Times about Ukraine.
And the question for the Prime Minister and for European leaders really is, how much pressure can they put on this situation? And what really can Europe's input be in any future deal with Ukraine? Is it still relevant? Is there anything that the Prime Minister, especially Keir Starmer here in this country, can do to represent Ukraine's interests? Well, Estonia has been one of the strongest critics of any deal that would force Ukraine to give up territory. And the country's Foreign Minister, Margus Tsahkna, joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
What for you is the most concerning element of this US-led proposal? And I ask you that knowing that there is some shifting sands and we may not have the final version, but what are you most worried about?
There are many of these points which are not fitting into secure the Ukraine for the future, but also there are many points which is actually directly will put us as a European part under concern in the meaning of the security architecture. So about the sovereignty principles that Ukraine can actually make their own choices for the future. There are many aspects which is directly connected to our decisions in the meaning how to put Russia on more pressure. I'm talking about the Russian frozen assets, which is in these 28 points, but it's sure that without Europe, nobody can use these Russian frozen assets. So I'm not even focusing on these points, but we are focusing on what we can do more as Europe. And it's clear that all European leaders declare that we are together with Ukraine. There cannot be any deals about Ukraine without Ukraine. And also there cannot be any deals about Europe without us. And so I think that the NATO membership, security guarantees, of course, the territorial questions, they are all concerning.
And yet, the reality of this situation is that America, Donald Trump, is once again leading this process, and in a way that Ukraine is very uncomfortable with. We were talking to an expert earlier on the programme who suggested that that may well be evidence that Europe has not been united or strong enough in its own development of an alternative plan. Do you think that Europe has dropped the ball here?
I don't think that Europe has dropped the ball. If you think that, if you see as well how much Europe has been doing lately about putting more sanctions on as well, we are preparing the 20th sanction package. I think that Putin went very nervous about the opportunity that maybe in December we are going to make a decision about Russian frozen assets, what we have close to 200 billion euros here, to make a decision to use them, to keep them frozen a very long time and give the guarantee and also the loan to Ukraine at least 140, 150 billion euros. So I think that these steps from European side made Russia more concerned. As well, that President Trump has put the sanctions on these two Russian energy companies. So it's really obvious that Putin is nervous because he has not had any kind of strategic breakthrough on the battlefield, but also he's running out of energy in the economy. So what we as a Europe must do, we need to continue that. And I think that we didn't drop the ball, but of course it's concerning that President Trump would like to put Ukraine under pressure without Europe. So we have been very clear and in constant communication and coordination with Ukrainians that Europe will remain supporting Ukraine, but also we will be very strong about anything which is about Europe. So, but of course, this process is not very clear for anybody.
And do you feel safe at the moment? I mean, do you feel that you are supported enough as a nation?
As Estonians, yes, I think that NATO is very strong. I came back from the visit to DC and New York, and I met several US officials. So I don't see the direct threat to Estonia because Russia is stuck into Ukraine. So, but we need to understand that if there are talks about the security architecture of Europe, if there are talks about NATO membership, if there are talks about the European Union membership, so for a long run, it's not good for our regional security as well. That's why Estonia is very active in this process.
Margus, thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you on the programme this morning.
Thank you.
That is Margus Tsahkna there, the country, Estonia's foreign minister.
The argument in the end is that Russia's going to win this war to a certain extent. And there's one of the stories today says it's going to get allowed back into the G8, what will become the G8. It's not going to be prosecuted for war crimes. It's not going to be prosecuted for stealing those children. That seems to be the best case scenario for people now, that Ukraine gets a degree of fairness, a degree of a security backup. NATO seems to be gone as a possible membership for Ukraine. So the best case scenario to many people is unpalatable. But as we heard from Anthony Lloyd at the beginning of the programme, continuing war is not palatable either.
Yeah,